Daenys the Dreamer. Born around 116 BC, she was known as Daenys the Dreamer, and she saved House Targaryen from extinction. As a young girl in Old Valyria, Daenys experienced a prophetic vision. She foresaw the Doom of Valyria, a cataclysmic event that would annihilate the greatest civilization the world had ever known. The Freehold was at its peak, and no one believed such destruction was possible, but her father, Lord Rhaenyra Targaryen, trusted his daughter completely. Acting on her vision, Rhaenyra made the controversial decision to sell all their holdings in Valyria and relocate the entire family to Dragonstone, a remote volcanic island in the Narrow Sea. Other Dragonlord families mocked them as cowards fleeing paradise. 12 years later, in 102 BC, the doom struck. Volcanic eruptions tore Valyria apart in a single day. The 14 flames exploded, the ground shattered, and the sea rushed in. Every Dragonlord family perished, except the Targaryens. Daenys' vision and Rhaenyra's decisive action had saved them, making House Targaryen the last Dragonlords in existence. Aegon the Conqueror. Aegon Targaryen founded the Targaryen dynasty. Born on Dragonstone, he married both his sisters, as required by Valyrian custom, Visenya, the warrior queen, and Rhaenys, the beloved. Together they commanded 3 dragons, Aegon's Balerion the Black Dread, Visenya's Vhagar, and Rhaenys' Meraxes. In 2 BC, they set out to unite the 7 kingdoms. The war of conquest that followed was swift and terrible. At the Field of Fire, the 3 dragons incinerated thousands of Reachmen and Westermen in a single afternoon. Survivors told tales of fire raining from the sky and men turning to ash. Kingdom after kingdom fell. Aegon forged the Iron Throne by melting surrendered swords with dragon fire, deliberately making it uncomfortable. Ruling should never be easy, he believed. Only Dorne resisted. When the Dornish killed Rhaenys and Meraxes at Hellholt, Aegon's grief turned to rage, but even Balerion couldn't force the Southern Kingdom to submit. Eventually, Aegon made peace with the Dornish. He died in 37 AC, leaving a unified realm that would last 300 years. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this deep dive into House Targaryen, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Visenya and Rhaenys. Visenya and Rhaenys were Aegon the Conqueror's sister wives, and together the 3 of them united the 7 kingdoms under Targaryen rule. The sisters couldn't have been more different. Visenya, born 29 BC, was the warrior queen. She was stern, serious, and a master swordswoman who wielded the Valyrian steel blade, Dark Sister. She rode the massive Vhagar and wore armor into battle. Visenya was the more severe, focused on duty and conquest. She personally established the Kingsguard to protect the king after an assassination attempt. Rhaenys, born 25 BC, was everything Visenya wasn't: playful, charming, and beloved by the people. She loved music, poetry, and flying her Meraxes. Where Visenya inspired respect and fear, Rhaenys inspired love. Aegon was said to wed Visenya out of duty, but Rhaenys out of desire. In 10 AC, Rhaenys and Meraxes were killed in Dorne at Hellholt when a scorpion bolt pierced Meraxes' eye, sending both dragon and rider crashing down. Visenya outlived both her siblings, dying in 44 AC at the age of 73. Maegor the Cruel. Maegor Targaryen, 42 to 48 AC, was Aegon's second son by Visenya and is remembered as the worst Targaryen king. When his half-brother Aenys died, Maegor seized the throne from Aenys' children and ruled through terror. He was a fierce warrior who wielded the Valyrian steel sword Blackfire and rode the dragon Balerion after Aegon's death. Maegor's cruelty knew no bounds. He took 6 wives in violation of the faith, executing wives who failed to give him sons. When the faith militant rebelled against his marriages, Maegor slaughtered them by the thousands. He tortured the builders of the Red Keep to death to keep its hidden passages secret. For all his brutality, Maegor never produced an heir. His wives either died in childbirth delivering malformed stillborns, or bore no children at all. In 48 AC, Maegor was found dead on the Iron Throne, impaled by its blades. Whether suicide, murder, or divine intervention, it remains a mystery. Jaehaerys Targaryen. Jaehaerys the Conciliator was perhaps the greatest Targaryen king, and he had to be. He inherited the throne at 14 after his uncle Maegor the Cruel's brutal reign nearly destroyed the dynasty. Where Maegor ruled through terror, young Jaehaerys chose calm and pragmatism. His 55-year reign came to be seen as a golden age. With his sister wife Alysanne, beloved as Good Queen Alysanne, Jaehaerys rebuilt the kingdom. The King's Road that runs from Storm's End to Castle Black was constructed during his reign. He codified laws and made peace with the faith. But tragedy haunted Jaehaerys. Of his 13 children, many died young. After his eldest son Aemon died, Jaehaerys passed over Aemon's daughter Rhaenys, the queen who never was, and named his second son Baelon as heir. When Baelon also died, Jaehaerys called the Great Council of 101 AC, which chose Baelon's son Viserys as the next heir. This precedent of favoring male claimants would have devastating consequences. In House of the Dragon, the old king's reign is remembered with reverence, but that succession decision planted seeds for civil war. Viserys Targaryen. King Viserys loved his family and wanted nothing more than to keep them united. This became his fatal flaw. His first wife, Lady Aemma Arryn, died horribly in 105 AC. The Maesters told Viserys to choose, save Aemma or the baby. He chose the baby. They performed a brutal cesarean while Aemma screamed. The infant lived only a day. Devastated, Viserys named his 8-year-old daughter Rhaenyra as his heir in 105 AC, unprecedented for a woman. In 106 AC, he married again, taking Alicent Hightower as his wife. Alicent gave him 4 children, including 3 sons, planting the first real seeds of a succession crisis. She pressed for her eldest Aegon to be named heir over his half-sister Rhaenyra. Before long, the court fractured into 2 camps, the Blacks for Rhaenyra and the Greens for Prince Aegon. Viserys refused to acknowledge conflict brewing, and when young Aemond lost an eye in a brawl with Rhaenyra's sons, the divide only widened. As disease consumed him, Viserys clung to power, believing his presence could hold the family together. On his deathbed, he thought the succession question was settled. However, his refusal to confront reality caused the Dance of the Dragons. Rhaenyra Targaryen. Rhaenyra was the realm's delight, a beautiful princess who rode the dragon Syrax and who was raised to rule. Viserys' chosen heir from age 8, she married Laenor Velaryon and had 3 sons, Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey. But whispers at court claimed their true father was Sir Harwin Strong, not Laenor. These rumors gave her enemies ammunition against her. After Laenor's death, Rhaenyra married her uncle Daemon in secret. When Viserys died, the Greens crowned Aegon in a brazen coup. Enraged, Rhaenyra was crowned on Dragonstone. The Dance of the Dragons began. The civil war was brutal. Dragon fought dragon, and families were torn apart. As this is all coming on screen over the coming months in House of the Dragon, we do not want to go into too much detail. Let us know in the comments if you want the full spoiler version. Regardless of what happened to her, Rhaenyra's legacy survived. Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey Velaryon. Rhaenyra's 3 eldest sons, Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey Velaryon, were central figures in the Dance of the Dragons, though whispers claimed they were actually fathered by Harwin Strong rather than Laenor Velaryon. Jacaerys was Rhaenyra's eldest and heir to the Iron Throne. He rode the dragon Vermax and proved himself a capable diplomat and warrior during the dance. Jace rallied support for his mother across Westeros, securing crucial alliances. Lucerys, born 115 AC, rode the dragon Arax. In 129 AC, 14-year-old Luke was sent as an envoy to Storm's End. Prince Aemond intercepted him, and after Boros Baratheon commanded that no blood be shed under his roof, Aemond pursued Luke into the storm. Aemond's massive dragon Vhagar devoured both Arax and Luke in the most shocking moment of House of the Dragon so far. Joffrey Velaryon, born 117 AC, is the youngest of the 3 and rode the dragon Tyraxes. Daemon Targaryen. Known as the Rogue Prince, and the name fit perfectly. King Viserys I's younger brother, Daemon craved action where the king sought peace. A warrior without equal, he wielded the Valyrian steel weapon Dark Sister, and rode Caraxes the Bloodworm. As commander of the City Watch, he styled himself Prince of the City. Restless and ambitious, Daemon fought a private war in the Stepstones and crowned himself King of the Narrow Sea before later surrendering the crown to Viserys. He married 3 times, first Lady Rhea Royce, whom he openly called the Bronze Bitch, then Lady Laena Velaryon, who bore him twin daughters, and finally his niece, Rhaenyra. When the Dance of the Dragons erupted, Daemon became Rhaenyra's greatest general and most dangerous weapon. Aegon II. Prince Aegon was Viserys' eldest son by Alicent. He was lazy and indulgent, preferring wine and women to matters of state. But despite his flaws, Queen Alicent and the Greens were determined to crown him, and when Viserys died, they moved with shocking speed. Sir Criston Cole placed the crown on Aegon's head in the Dragon Pit within a week of his father's death. Aegon rode Sunfire the Golden, considered the most beautiful dragon alive with its magnificent golden scales. At the Battle of Rook's Rest, Aegon and Sunfire killed Princess Rhaenys and her dragon Meleys, but were horribly wounded in the fight. Aegon suffered terrible burns and broken bones. He was bedridden for months, unable to rule. When he finally recovered, he proved capable of shocking cruelty. Aemond Targaryen. Aemond became known as Aemond One-Eye and Aemond the Kinslayer. As a boy, he had no dragon, as his siblings and cousins had claimed theirs. This ate at him. After Lady Lena Velaryon's funeral, however, a young Aemond crept out in the middle of the night and successfully claimed Vhagar, a massive beast that had once belonged to Queen Visenya. But claiming Vhagar came at a terrible price. That same night, Rhaenyra's sons confronted him about taking the deceased Lena's dragon. A vicious fight broke out between the children. During the brawl, Lucerys slashed a knife across Aemond's face, cutting out his right eye. Aemond wore a sapphire in the empty socket, a glittering replacement that became his signature. When the dance began, Prince Aemond became Aegon's chief lieutenant and most deadly weapon. He earned lasting infamy when he killed his nephew Lucerys at Storm's End, earning the name Kinslayer and igniting the full fury of war. Helaena Targaryen. Helaena, born in 109 AC, was the only daughter of King Viserys and Queen Alicent, and in many ways the most innocent victim of the dance. She was gentle and sweet-natured, more interested in insects and small creatures than politics. Following tradition, Helaena was married to her brother Aegon II in 122 AC and bore him twin children, Jaehaerys and Jaehaera. When Rhaenyra's forces took the capital in 130 AC, two hired killers infiltrated the Red Keep. They cornered Helaena with her children and demanded a son for a son, revenge for Lucerys' death. When Helaena begged them to kill her instead and spare her children, the killers refused. They forced her to point to the male heir. Little Prince Jaehaerys was beheaded right in front of her while she watched helplessly. By the end of Season 2 of House of the Dragon, Helaena remains in the Red Keep and has transitioned from a quiet dreamer to a figure who holds more knowledge than any other character in the series, effectively becoming its voice of fate. Aegon III. Aegon, 131 to 157 AC, called Aegon the Dragonbane and the Broken King, inherited a kingdom devastated by civil war. Born in 120 AC, Aegon was only a child when he became king. He had witnessed terrible trauma during the Dance of the Dragons. The boy king was somber and broken, never smiling, dressed always in black. During his reign, the last of the Targaryen dragons died, earning him the name Dragonbane, though he was not responsible for their deaths. Aegon married twice. First to Jaehaera in a peace marriage. Then he wed Daenerys Velaryon, with whom he had 5 children. Despite his melancholy nature, Aegon ruled competently with the help of his regents. Aegon the Unworthy. Aegon IV was, without question, the worst Targaryen who ever sat on the Iron Throne. He earned the epithet the Unworthy through decades of corruption, cruelty, and catastrophic decisions. Obese, gluttonous, and consumed by his appetites, Aegon cared nothing for justice or good governance. He was notoriously lecherous. He fathered bastards across the 7 kingdoms, giving royal favor to whoever pleased him, while the realm suffered. His marriage to his sister Rhaenys was abusive. She was pious and frail, and Aegon forced himself on her repeatedly despite her pleas that more pregnancies might kill her. He publicly accused Rhaenys of adultery with his brother Aemon the Dragonknight, claiming their son Daeron might actually be Aemon's bastard. Only Aemon's victory in a trial by combat preserved Rhaenys' honor. On his deathbed in 184 AC, Aegon committed his worst act. He legitimized all of his bastard children with a stroke of a pen, and he gave the Valyrian steel sword Blackfire to his bastard son Daemon instead of to his legitimate heir Daeron. This set the stage for his bastards to challenge his son's rule after his death and led directly to 5 Blackfire rebellions over 60 years. The realm celebrated when he died. Daeron Targaryen. Daeron the Good was everything his father wasn't: scholarly, diplomatic, and just. Known as the Good King, he inherited a mess and spent his reign trying to clean it up. The whispers about his parentage haunted him. Aegon had publicly claimed Daeron was actually Aemon the Dragonknight's bastard, giving Daeron's enemies ammunition. Daeron's greatest achievement was bringing Dorne into the Seven Kingdoms peacefully. While Aegon the Conqueror had failed with dragons, and Daeron I had briefly conquered Dorne only to lose it, Daeron II succeeded through marriage and negotiation. He married Princess Maria Martell himself, and arranged his sister's marriage to the ruling Prince of Dorne. These diplomatic agreements finally united Dorne with the rest of Westeros after nearly 2 centuries of trying. But his half-brother Daemon Blackfyre rose in revolt, claiming the throne. The First Blackfyre Rebellion in 196 AC was a massive civil war that culminated at the Battle of Red Grass Field, where Daemon and his sons were killed. Daeron ruled for 25 years and died in the Great Spring Sickness in 209 AC. Aemon the Dragonknight. Prince Aemond Targaryen, 136 to 171 AC, known as the Dragon Knight, is considered the noblest knight who ever lived. Brother to King Aegon the Unworthy and Queen Rhaenys, Aemon joined the Kingsguard and served with legendary valor. He wielded the Valyrian steel sword, Dark Sister, and was unmatched in combat. He won countless tournaments and battles, saving King Aegon's life multiple times despite his brother's cruelty toward Rhaenys. The small folk loved him, and songs were written about his nobility and prowess. Aegon publicly accused Rhaenys of adultery with Aemon, claiming their son Daeron was actually Aemon's bastard. To defend his sister's honor, Aemon fought in a trial by combat against Ser Morgul Hastwyck and won decisively, proving Rhaenys' innocence. In 171 AC, Aemon died as he lived, heroically. During an assassination attempt by the Toyne brothers, Aemon threw himself in front of Aegon, taking the sword meant for the king. He died saving the brother who had tormented him and his sister for years. He was 35 years old, unmarried and childless due to his Kingsguard vows, and forever remembered as the perfect knight. Baelor Targaryen. Baelor Breakspear was the eldest son of Daeron II and considered the best prince in generations. He took the name Breakspear from the broken spear on his personal sigil. He was everything a crown prince should be. A formidable warrior who won tourneys, diplomatic, intelligent, and fair-minded. During the First Blackfyre Rebellion, Baelor commanded forces loyal to his father and fought bravely. In A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, Baelor appears at the tourney at Ashford Meadow. He's shown as a noble prince who intervenes to defend Sir Duncan the Tall. Baelor's willingness to stand up for what was right, even against his own family, showed his fundamental decency. Tragically, Baelor died young at that very tourney. During a trial by combat, he fought his own brother Prince Maegor. In the heat of battle, Maegor struck Baelor in the head with a mace. At first, the blow didn't seem fatal, but Prince Baelor collapsed and died from brain hemorrhage. His death was catastrophic. The realm lost its best heir. Many believe that if Baelor had lived to become king, later tragedies might have been avoided. How did you think this was handled in the series? We miss Baelor already. Aegon the Unlikely. Aegon V, better known as Egg, was one of the most unconventional Targaryen kings. He was a fourth son, so far down the line of succession that no one expected him to ever rule. Hence his epithet, the Unlikely. Egg starts as a squire for the hedge knight Sir Duncan the Tall. Young Egg is bright, idealistic, and compassionate. Squiring for Dunk exposes Egg to the lives of small folk in a way that princes raised in castles never experience. These experiences shape Egg's worldview. What happens with Egg in the series remains to be seen. His future will involve fulfilling the prophecy of ruling seen in Season 1, and he will continue with Dunk at his side. Long after his death, his family line will have a great influence into the time of Daenerys, his great-granddaughter, who fulfills some of his deep desires around dragons. More on that later, though. Maester Aemon. Aemond Targaryen, 198 to 300 AC, lived for 102 years and is one of the most beloved figures in Westerosi history. Born the third son of King Maegor, Aemon was offered the crown in 233 AC when his older brother died and his other brother was deemed unfit. But he refused, allowing his younger brother Aegon the Unlikely to become king instead. To remove himself from politics and temptation, Aemon joined the Citadel and became a maester, swearing vows of celibacy and service. He went to Castle Black to serve the Night's Watch, where he became their revered maester. Jon Snow knew him as the blind old man who mentored him with wisdom and kindness. In Season 1, Aemon revealed his true identity to Jon Snow. When his great-great-grandniece Daenerys was born across the sea, Aemon wept, knowing he was no longer the last. He died at Castle Black in 300 AC. His last words were calling for his younger brother Egg and speaking of Daenerys and dragons. Aerys the Mad King. Aerys II was the last Targaryen to sit on the Iron Throne, and his madness destroyed the dynasty. As a young man, Aerys was charming and ambitious, friends with Tywin Lannister, who became his hand. But jealousy of Tywin's competence and growing paranoia poisoned everything. He began seeing traitors everywhere, making erratic decisions. He became obsessed with wildfire. "Burn them all," became his refrain. He grew filthy, refusing to let anyone cut his hair or trim his nails. The breaking point came when Brandon Stark rode to King's Landing, demanding Prince Rhaegar answer for Lyanna's whereabouts. Aerys seized Brandon for treason. When Lord Rickard Stark came to answer for his son, the Mad King gave him trial by combat, naming fire as the crown's champion. What followed was horrific. Aerys had Lord Rickard suspended from the rafters in his armor and lit a fire beneath him. He slowly roasted alive. Brandon was brought out with a Tyroshi strangling device around his neck, and as his father screamed in agony, Brandon desperately tried to reach his sword. But the more he struggled, the tighter the noose pulled. Brandon strangled himself while his father burned to death. This atrocity in 282 AC sparked Robert's rebellion. As Robert Baratheon's forces closed on King's Landing, Aerys ordered wildfire placed throughout the capital. "Burn them all," he commanded. Jaime Lannister, a young knight of the Kingsguard, heard these orders and drove his sword through Aerys's back, killing the Mad King in 283 AC to save the city. Rhaegar Targaryen. Rhaegar was the crown prince whose actions destroyed his family. Born at Summerhall on the very night that Castle burned to the ground, Rhaegar was intelligent, cultured, and widely beloved, despite his father's growing madness. As a youth, he was bookish, more interested in reading and ancient prophecy than warfare. He played the harp beautifully and sang sad, melancholy songs that could make women weep. But one day, after reading something in an old scroll, young Rhaegar announced, "It seems I must be a warrior." He threw himself into martial training and became a skilled jouster and swordsman. Rhaegar became convinced he was the prince that was promised from ancient prophecy, or that his children would be. He married Princess Elia Martell of Dorne and had 2 children, Rhaenys and Aegon. Then came the tourney at Harrenhal in 281 AC. Rhaegar won the tournament and was given the honor of crowning the Queen of Love and Beauty. Everyone expected him to crown his wife Elia. Instead, he rode past her and placed the crown of blue winter roses in the lap of Lyanna Stark. The crowd fell silent in shock. It was a public slight to Elia and an insult to House Stark and House Baratheon. Sometime after the tourney, Rhaegar and Lyanna disappeared together. Whether it was abduction or love is debated, but it triggered war. At the Battle of the Trident in 283 AC, Rhaegar led the royal army against Robert's forces. The climax came when Rhaegar and Robert met in single combat in the ford. Both were skilled warriors in their prime, but Robert's rage over Lyanna fueled his strength. Robert swung his warhammer and struck Rhaegar in the chest. The blow caved in Rhaegar's breastplate and killed him instantly. Rhaegar fell into the river's waters, his armor's rubies scattering in the current. The place became known as the Ruby Ford. Viserys III. Viserys, 276 to 298 AC, was born during his family's downfall. He was only 7 years old when Robert's rebellion destroyed the Targaryen dynasty. As Aerys' second son, Viserys became heir after Rhaegar died at the Trident. Before Stannis Baratheon's forces could take Dragonstone, servants smuggled young Viserys and his newborn sister Daenerys across the narrow sea to the free cities. Their mother Rhaella had died giving birth to Daenerys during a storm. For years, Viserys and Daenerys lived as impoverished exiles, constantly moving to stay ahead of Robert's assassins. The years of fear and poverty twisted Viserys. He became bitter, cruel, and obsessed with reclaiming his throne. He called himself the rightful king and abused Daenerys, blaming her for their mother's death. Desperate to fund an army, Viserys sold his 13-year-old sister in marriage to Khal Drogo. When Drogo refused to immediately invade Westeros, Viserys grew increasingly unstable. Finally, after Viserys drunkenly threatened Daenerys and her unborn child, Drogo executed him by pouring molten gold over his head, giving him the golden crown he'd always wanted. Daenerys Targaryen. Daenerys Stormborn was born on Dragonstone during a massive storm as Robert's rebellion ended, with her mother dying while giving birth to her. Her brother Viserys was cruel to her and sold her in marriage to Khal Drogo, a powerful Dothraki warlord, in exchange for an army. Daenerys was terrified at first, but as she lived among the Dothraki, something awakened. She learned their language, embraced their ways, and discovered her own strength. She fell in love with Drogo, and he came to love and respect her. She became pregnant with his son. Then tragedy struck. Drogo was wounded and the cut became infected. Desperate, Daenerys turned to a witch who offered blood magic to save him. The price was terrible. Drogo was left catatonic, his mind gone. Her son was stillborn. Grief-stricken but unbowed, Daenerys ended Drogo's suffering and walked into his funeral pyre with 3 ancient dragon eggs. When dawn broke, Daenerys emerged from the ashes unharmed. Curled around her were 3 living, newly hatched dragons, the first in a century and a half. She named them Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion. Over the next years, Daenerys conquered the slaver cities of Slaver's Bay, liberating hundreds of thousands. She sailed to Westeros with massive armies and dragons, allying with Jon Snow to defeat the White Walkers at Winterfell. But after victory came devastating losses. 2 of her dragons were killed, her closest friends and advisors died. She felt increasingly isolated. During the assault on King's Landing, even after the city surrendered and the bells rang, grief and rage consumed her. She unleashed Drogon on the surrendered city, burning King's Landing to ashes. Thousands upon thousands of innocents were incinerated. Jon Snow, torn between love and duty, drove a dagger into her heart to save the realm. Drogon found her body, took it gently in his claws, and flew east beyond the known world. The last dragon and the last Targaryen disappeared together. That's it for our guide to every Targaryen. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and check out our deep dive into every member of House Lannister.